If you're a cycling female and you feel like your hormones are off and you've had your hormones checked by your doctor, you're probably ordering the wrong labs at the wrong time and for the wrong reasons to really get an idea on what maybe some of the root causes are to why your hormones are off to begin with. So, in this video today, I'm going to share a little case study of a patient that we're currently working with that's been dealing with some of these hormonal issues herself. And she's been dealing with, for her, she's been dealing with low estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone for a few years now. But as of recent, she started having, instead of a normal 28-day-ish cycle, she's having her period every 10 days, 12 days, 14 days. Like, she can't get past 2 weeks before having her period. And in the past, she's gone to her OB and she's been put on, bioidentical hormones like the testosterone, the estrogen, and the progesterone. And the reason why she came to us initially is because that put her into this emotional, mental, and a little bit of physical chaos. And she just couldn't keep doing it. So she was looking for a holistic route, a holistic method to help regulate her body. But as of recent, with her cycles being off, we decided to. So I often like to order what's called a Dutch test, but that needs to be done. It's a urinary test that's looking at your hormones and the metabolites, but that needs to be done at a specific time in your cycle. So what we decided to do, since she is having her period, is to do a day 3 blood test. And the reason why a day 3 blood test is so important is because that is when your hormones are they're suppressed at their lowest, which gives you the most accurate time to be able to check those hormones. So you can compare the hormones to one another. It's more than just, at any time testing, estrogen's high, progesterone's low, whatever. It's about seeing how they all play together. And so day 3 is typically the most consistent time to be able to check those things. And so we started working with this patient. We got her day 3 labs. But before I get into her labs, I want to show you just a little bit about how a cycle works, because I can't tell you how many times I ask a patient, like, how long is your cycle? And they say, like 5 days. But all they're really talking about is their period. And we're not looking at the menstruation. I want to know about the whole cycle, which is from period to period, from the beginning of menstruation to the beginning of menstruation. So the first day that a woman has her menstrual cycle, first day that she has her period, that is considered day 1. And a normal period should last about 28 days. As long as it's consistent, right? If somebody is consistently 26 days or somebody's consistently 30 days, that's okay. But on average, it's about a 28-day cycle. And so as you can see on my chart here, the 4 main hormones that we're looking at are going to be estradiol, which is this teal turquoise color. There's LH, which is this blue. There's FSH, which is pink, and there's progesterone to the right, which is this red. And those are the 4 main ones that we're looking at, because those are what influence that cycle. And what you'll see here is day 1 of menstruation, right? Everything is pretty low, and we want to check it at day 3 when everything's had a chance to, kind of regulate and suppress itself before everything starts to rise. So the first thing we're going to look at is FSH, which stands for follicle stimulating hormone. And what this does is it stimulates the follicles within the ovaries to be able to mature. And this stimulation by FSH is going to allow this estradiol to start rising before we get into ovulation, which is when your body, that follicle, releases its egg. And progesterone at this point should be really low, right? And as it's low after ovulation, what happens is, so this LH right here, luteinizing hormone, that is like the trigger of the pistol. It's the fire starter, right? It's what cracks that follicle open to release that egg, which allows for ovulation. And then after the egg is released, then that follicle starts building up into what's called the corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum is what increases this progesterone here. And if there's no implantation, if there's no sperm to implant, to fertilize that egg, then the corpus luteum is, your body sends a signal to it and it says, hey, we don't need this. So the corpus luteum is going to start shedding and the progesterone starts to drop again. And then we end up at day 1 again, where we have our period. We'll get into it, but LH is also important at stimulating testosterone. And again, in this patient that we're going to be talking about, the testosterone was really low. So when we look at her day 3 values, you're going to kind of see what I'm talking about. So those are the 4 hormones that we really are looking at primarily when it comes to having a cycle. So I'm going to share with you now this patient. It's a 44-year-old female, again, dealing with a cycle that is only now lasting every like 10 to 12 days. She's having basically 2 periods a month, which is completely abnormal for her. So we decided to look at a day 3 sample on her. And the first thing we're going to see here is her luteinizing hormone. And again, this first phase is called your follicular phase. So that's what we're looking at. And you can see the reference range is 2.4 to 12.6. She's a 0.4. So her LH, she is not getting that surge at all. When we go down to FSH, her FSH is a 3. And again, when you look at that follicular phase, it's a 3.5 to a 12.5. She's also low. LH and FSH are created in the pituitary, in the brain. And that's what sends the signal down to the ovaries for the ovaries to produce the other hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And so she's not getting a signal from her brain to the ovaries. So her testosterone's a little bit on the lower end. Look at progesterone. Follicular phase, 0.1 to 0.9. So she's a 0.7. So her progesterone is at an okay range at this phase. But look at her estrogen. So estrogen is not even showing up, right? Her follicular phase, 12.5 to 166. So we would expect it to be on the lower end because this is day 3, but she's way low. So I can look at this and think, hey, estrogen is low, but why? And it's her brain is not sending that signal properly. I also like to look at anti-Müllerian hormone, or AMH. This is basically showing you, are their healthy eggs still viable? So if this patient wanted to become pregnant, can she? Because, do they have eggs that can be fertilized? In this patient, for her age range, it's a little bit on the lower end of the range, but there are viable eggs. So it's not that she is completely into a state of perimenopause yet. I like to look at DHEA because this is a precursor to testosterone. So I wanted to see, does she have enough of the precursor to testosterone? Is that why her testosterone is low? And she seemingly has enough DHEA to turn into testosterone. So why is that testosterone going lower? Again, it doesn't seem like it's so much of a precursor issue. It seems like it's more of that hormone from the brain signal down to the ovaries. I like to look at cortisol because cortisol is your stress hormone. And if your body is overly stressed, then your body's not going to create the sex hormones. So that kind of works on an inverse relationship. If cortisol goes way up, the sex hormones tend to go down. And when I'm looking at her cortisol here, this is also on the higher end of this range for the morning cortisol. Now, what I'd like to do is do a full daily cortisol pattern, like a cortisol stress index, to see how it shifts throughout the day. This is just looking at the morning, but it gives me some indication that we might have to look into that. The other thing that I really like to look at is the thyroid, because your thyroid is also a signal. Like I mentioned, we have cortisol, we have the thyroid, we have insulin. Now on this, I didn't check her insulin because on all past blood work, her blood sugar has been stable and good and in the optimal ranges. What I did order on this patient, but I'm not sharing right now, is I also got a CBC and a CMP, a comprehensive metabolic panel, and a complete blood count. All of that was within range and normal, so I'm not sharing it here. But those are things that I like to add on my day 3, just to make sure that everything else is functioning properly in her body. But when I look at TSH, ideally, I like that between different people, their ranges are going to, change. I like it between a 1.8 and a 3.0. I know some people like it lower. As long as it's not above a 3, then I'm relatively okay if everything is in that range. But you can see that she's a little bit higher there. Now, TSH is also a signal from the pituitary that sends a signal to the thyroid to create T4, which will convert into T3. So her T4, I like it between a 1 and a 1.5. And again, you'll see these reference ranges here. This is a reference range, which means if it's lower than that range or higher than that range, then then we look at it like it's in a disease state. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily optimal. So optimally, I like T4, free T4 between a 1 and a 1.5. So she's holding well there. But look at her free T3. Her free T3, I like between a 3 and a 4. I know some people like it higher, but I like it between a 3 and a 4 on an optimal range. She's at a 1.8. So she is not converting T4 to T3 effectively. And you need this free T3 to create testosterone. You need it to increase metabolism. So with this patient that's dealing with some weight gain issues, energy fluctuation, all of this is off, but it's ultimately not necessarily the organs that are causing the issue. It's not the ovaries that are causing the issue. It's not the thyroid that's causing the issue. It's the pituitary that's affecting it. So what I had this patient do is we put her on some different herbs and vitamins and supplements to stimulate the pituitary gland. And by stimulating the pituitary gland, look, this may be a little bit early to do this video, but we've been doing this current protocol for a little over a month, and her last cycle was 25 days, which is amazing. So she was going from every 10 to 12, maybe 14 days between having a period, and now she just got to 25. So she's not at that 28 that I like, but significant improvement, and time will tell if this continues to hold up for her. But what this patient is likely having are called anovulatory cycles. So as I scroll back up to this chart here, she didn't have enough FSH to stimulate the follicles to create enough estrogen. And you need a good estrogen surge to allow for that progesterone to start coming up here. So if you don't have good estrogen, you're not going to have that good progesterone. And without that follicle being stimulated and her LH being low from the pituitary, she wasn't actually getting to a stage of ovulation. So instead of ovulating, releasing that egg, and having the corpus luteum, her body was like, okay, we just need to get rid of this corpus luteum. And then she was jumping from here back over to here. And she kept doing this back and forth. She wasn't hitting the second phase of her cycle. So she finally got to this cycle that she just had. She was able to get through to this phase. We're going to see how this all holds up. But it's really exciting to see that she's actually feeling better. She's getting back to a stage. She's actually lost some weight already, which is kind of great. And her energy is starting to stabilize. So this is a really cool test. It's a day 3 test, hormone test. Again, we got to look at our labs. When we're looking at it, we got to figure out when's the right timing. What's the purpose of looking at this? This isn't the only labs that I like to order. I like to order a lot of different labs. But when looking at the patient and seeing what they're struggling with, what is it that they need at the right time? And then when we create protocols for these patients, what is the right sequencing of these protocols? Because it's not about finding the perfect protocol. It's about finding the perfect sequencing between these protocols so that people can get long-lasting results and not having to live off of supplements for the rest of their life. It's teaching people how to live and how to eat and what to do from a lifestyle standpoint so that they can start living life again and not having to just rely on taking a daily pill. One of the reasons why I love working with women, so in our office, we work with women primarily. We do work with men too, but primarily women. And I like working with women because women are the kind of the foundation, the keystone in the household. The way I look at it is that if you can help the women get healthier, you actually start helping the whole household get healthier. I've got my wife and 3 kids in our house, and my wife does most of the cooking. The kids are eating most of what she's making. If you can get the wife or the mom, the mother healthier, the rest of the household tends to follow. And so this is really exciting for me. I hope you learned something from this. Look, I'm going to share below this video a link to the day 3 hormones that I like to order. If you wanted to work with us, you can always give us a call and schedule a clarity call where we can see how we can help you further. But if not, print out the link to these day 3 hormones, give it to your doctor, see if they'll order on day 3. And I hope this helps you look at it a little bit better to where you can finally understand and see what it is going on within your body to know why it is that you feel the way you feel. I hope this helps. God bless you.